Mortal Kombat is back, and much like 2011's Mortal Kombat 9, MK1 marks the beginning of a new round for the series. A fresh start while also being a continuation of past events. But how does this entry and its new timeline stack up to what came before? Is it a flawless victory? Well, maybe not, but it is a bloody good time.
Fatality.
The recent Mortal Kombat games have all had their own unique qualities, and I'll admit I wasn't the biggest fan of how restricted character movesets became in MK11. It all felt rather sluggish, which is a shame, because I loved just about everything else in 11. Well, almost everything. So I'm happy to say that MK1 feels and plays great. Characters have more options and allow for getting creative with your combos. And it's just downright fun. There's a healthy 24 characters on the base roster, a number of which harken back to the 3D era on the PS2 and Xbox. Characters like Havoc, Li Mei, and of course, the ever-popular Blind Swordsman Kenshi. Now, I was a big fan of the 3D era, in particular the awesome Mortal Kombat Deception, which I still think is one of the best MK games to this day. So it's cool to see that era getting a little love here. One of the newest additions to Mortal Kombat 1 is the Cameo Fighters, with 15 assist characters to help you crack some skulls and tear some flesh. And they all seemingly call back to their original appearances, coupled with their classic fatalities. It doesn't get much better than the good old cyborgs that are just too cool for school. Altogether, I think the start and roster here is pretty damn good. There's room for improvement, but it's hard for me to complain when they finally brought back Ninja Reptile and made him more badass looking than ever, and even gave him a crocodile death roll. Now if only they didn't turn around and make Rain a water wizard. I'm a man of simple taste. I like the effective simplicity of different colored ninja garbs. But hey, you win some, you lose some. What we didn't lose though are the glorious fatalities. After all, Mortal Kombat would not be the same without them. It's hard to top the fatals of MK11, but the ones here will still satisfy your bloodlust, with plenty of savage brutalities to boot. Something I would have loved to see though, given this game's 3D era influence, is all the batshit crazy death traps Deadly Alliance and Deception had. But instead of performing them mid-match, just have them act like stage fatals when you get the final hit in the corner, or do the classic uppercut. At this point, I think there's a lot more untapped potential with stage fatals, so I say it's time to start thinking outside the box. The stages themselves are outstanding, one of the best set of stages in an MK game to date. From bright, beautiful temples to gnarly, ghastly shitholes, all brimming with detail and have so much going on in the background. The best part though is the stage music. And I can't believe that I'm saying that because Mortal Kombat has been lacking in the music department for decades, often going for a more cinematic sound that falls into the background. But not here. Finally, the music further amplifies the action on screen, incorporating some of the catchy techno elements that perfectly complemented the original movie. Aside from jumping right into verses and bloody in your hands, Mortal Kombat 1 brings with it a number of other modes. Something else Mortal Kombat has been known to do, Returnin' is another cinematic story mode, and while I'll keep this spoiler free, I will say it was a lot of fun seeing the new twists on classic characters, and seeing how everything would play out and which parts of history would repeat and which paths would diverge. The action choreography in the cutscenes was fantastic, and they made my boy Reptile into a total badass and no longer a jobber. The story does start to get a little into the multiverse shenanigans, and honestly I hope they don't go down that route further in future games. To me, that reduces the stakes, but it did allow for a pretty sweet moment where you get to give any character on the roster time to shine as the chosen one. Nothing spells classic with a K than some tried and true arcade ladders, which make a return here as well, giving each character their own unique endings. However, unlike past MKs, all of the endings here are officially canon, since there's a lot of world building going on in MK1, and I'm not sure how I feel about that. I honestly feel that, on one hand, it gives the endings more meaning and might provide you with more incentive to go through with each character. On the other hand, they're all a lot less bombastic. It was more interesting seeing the spicy directions the endings took in the past. Now they just give you a mild slice of what essentially happens after the story mode. New to MK1 is Invasions mode, where you venture through a series of maps and take on a slew of gimmicky fights, collecting treasures, leveling up, defeating bosses, and taking part in some nifty minigames like Test Your Might, which is probably the most fun to be had here.
Excellent.
Simply leveling up your characters and player profile and playing this Invasions mode are the three big ways you're going to unlock gear and costumes, because there is no crypt. And unfortunately, Invasion seems to be the most efficient way to level up. I say unfortunately because it is a bit of a slog. You slowly, and I do mean slowly, move around the map and do the most repetitive tasks over and over again. It's not as egregious as the random live-in towers from MK11, but this mode is just not that fun to play. Now your mileage may vary, but real quick, Invasions made me miss the good old crypt. Sure, the previous one had a lot of busy work, but there was so many nifty Easter eggs and movie references in MK11's crypt, which was killer to see, despite its faults.
I could see his guts and everything. Almost lost my lunch.
This mode, however, is just a poor man's conquest mode. And while they plan on making it seasonal and rotating out the maps, I can't see myself coming back to playing more of this. Even halfway through the first set of maps, I was pretty much done. Mortal Kombat 1 does also feature a small shop with rotating items that you can either buy with the currency you earn, or just buy altogether. Now this might rub some the wrong way, but since currency is earnable and it's just cosmetics, I don't really mind it, but I will say MK11 had a lot more options in terms of gear, even if it was a pain to unlock it all. Overall, Mortal Kombat 1 is far from perfect, but it does have a solid base roster, great stages, killer music, a pretty decent story mode, and hell, most importantly, it's fun to play. The gameplay here is what stands tall. I don't think it holds a candle to this year's Street Fighter 6, and it may not be a flawless victory, but I don't think the most perfect Mortal Kombat even exists. For me, if I could take the gameplay and roster of 9, the iconic horror and action guest characters of X and 11, as well as 11's fight intros and fatalities, and lastly the stages and music of MK1. You know what, while we're at it, the extra modes and the death traps of Deception. All of that together, now that would be a flawless Mortal Kombat to me. But hey, a flawed victory is still a victory. Mortal Kombat 1 is still very much what could be considered excellent.
Choose your queen.
Fatality. Sindel wins.